Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Pause with Elizabeth Elenor. How on earth are you today? I'd love for you to say hi in the chat. And let me just check that I'm actually live, and here I am. And if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, so that we can come in and say hi afterwards and know that you're watching, and be very interesting to see what topics you're loving and what topics you're wanting to know more about. So today we're actually going to be talking about the soul's whisper. And are you actually listening? That's the thing, right? It's one thing to know that the soul is whispering, and it's another thing to actually be taking action on it. And so, do you know what your soul is here to experience this time around? Like, what do you know about your soul and what your soul wants to experience this time around? Like, we've all got a little bit of an idea. If you're on you're a magical woman, if you're on a spiritual journey, then you know that there's something that is bubbling up and has been bubbling up all your life. The thing is, are you listening to it? So let's back up a little bit, because when we're growing up, I just did my Conscious Creator Circle group call this morning, and that's my 10K program. It's my signature program, and what we do in there is we support each other to create. I teach the secrets of alchemy. We dive into what our soul's calling is, our destiny, and we navigate and orientate to our greatness rather than to the ego or the identity that is holding us back from living our greatness, living, our best life. And that's where the magic happens, right? Is when you get the opportunity to really align and orientate to what your soul wants to experience. That's when all of the miracles and the synchronicities and all of the things that people think are spiritual experiences, they become normal, and you just are in this state of alignment where something happened the other day. Just to give you an example, I've had this thing with my jaw, right, recently. I think it's like a menopause thing where my jaw feels like it's really tight, and it feels like it's holding, and my teeth are grinding, all of those things. And I've been seeing videos or images on Facebook where people are getting jaw alignments, and they're in hospital with all this stuff on their face and their mouth swollen, and it looks horrific, right? And I mentioned it to Tim. I'm like, it's really interesting. I've got something going on with my jaw, and I'm seeing these jaw alignment operations, right? People going and getting horrific experiences done with their jaw. Well, lo and behold, I go onto YouTube to find something else, right? Some stretching exercise for my shoulders or whatever it was. And I find a YouTube on jaw releasing, and all of these different things that you can do, like pulling the tongue and shifting the jaw in particular ways to clear the fascia, mouth movements and all this sort of stuff. And I did the whole exercise. It was like a 20-minute exercise, intense, and my whole jaw moved and relaxed. Now, the thing is, why did that happen, right? Was it a coincidence that I had the thing, this is something that's going on I want to find a resolution for it because it's painful, right? And just having the thought, because of the alignment, the soul comes in and goes, I've got a solution for you. And then you follow the white rabbit, right? You follow the moments that your soul is putting there, like little cookie crumbs that the soul puts down, and you follow those, and next thing you've got a solution to your problem, or the end result of something that you've been wanting to create. So it's these little tiny moments that become a flow pattern when you're in alignment with your soul. Now, what happens is the ego, and who's had those experiences, right? Definitely listening, Irene. How are you? Who's had the experience of lining up? Throw a yes into the comments if you know that you have lined up with your soul and had that connection with your soul and had these little mini miracles happen. These little mini miracles are the things that that collapse time, because when you're listening to your soul, when you're really connecting in, you have these micro moments. What happens on the other side of that? On the other side of that, you've got your ego, right? Your identity. Now, your identity is a cheeky bugger. Your ego or identity is the part of you that's made up decisions. It's like the robotic mind. And so it's this part that holds on to information from the past based on how it survived, right? How it was able to behave a certain way so that it's survived. It didn't die, right? Now, its whole purpose is to live in the now moment as a physical being in this environment. So it has behaviors that it's put together from childhood to keep us functioning as a physical human being, right? Now, not all of those behaviors were in our best interest. They just weren't. So some of the things that happened when we were kids, we made decisions about what we wanted to create. Like, we're down the street hanging out with kids or whatever, and one of the kids is being nasty, and so we withdraw, right? We withdraw from the situation. So then the unconscious or the ego goes into the space of like, I survived that. It felt uncomfortable, so I withdrew. So now it's stuck in the system, in the brain, in the nervous system, that when something's uncomfortable, I withdraw. So now you grow up, right? You want to start your own business. You want to meet a beautiful partner. You want to, get healthy, whatever it might be. And here you are getting uncomfortable, like you meet someone or you see someone and you want to go and walk up and say hi, but you feel uncomfortable. So the body goes into, I'm feeling uncomfortable, so I'm going to withdraw, because that's what I did last time, way back, and that's what I've been doing all these years. And because of that, I'm still here, I'm safe in a way, and I survived, right? But it's not the best plan of action when you want to grow and expand and live your best life if you're constantly withdrawing. So the ego has its own agenda and is definitely different and often in contrast to the higher self, to the soul. So here's the soul whispering, hey, this time around you wanted to learn this, this, and this. This time around you wanted to experience love. You wanted to experience, vitality. You wanted to experience building your own empire, whatever it might be. And the ego goes, no, no, no. I'm not going to let that, because that's the unknown. And so through that process, the identity goes into holding and withdrawing and putting you into patterns of behavior that are limiting you and holding you back from this bigger experience that your soul wanted to explore. And so here's your soul whispering, come here, do it this way, bring on this experience, you've got so much more to give. You are an amazing creator. You're a powerful being. You're a force to be reckoned with. But the unconscious won't let you listen. And the unconscious, one of the things I was just saying to my clients is the ego's not a problem when you're in your greatness, right? The ego is only a problem when you're in your ego, because the ego is always trying to fix things, and so the ego is trying to fix the ego. So here we are in this situation where we might think that we're listening to our soul and we're listening to that connection of our higher self, but the ego or the identity can be tricky and be pretending to be your higher self, can be pretending to keep your best interest at heart. And I used to see it a lot in the spiritual development process, like when I was growing up spiritually, like I was living in far north Queensland, and you would see a lot of people. There was a whole time frame, and it's still happening. When I recognize it in people when I meet spiritual people that haven't got out of this process yet. What happens is, it's like, I just got this download of information of, I got this download and this is what I've got to do. Oh, now I'm getting this other download and now I've got to go this direction instead. My guides told me not to do that. Like, I just got, my guides said, don't do that, right? Well, I don't know about you, but I do know that the soul has one agenda, and that is to be in its truth, right? And the unconscious, the ego, will do everything it possibly can to bring you into distraction, to lower your level of behavior, to discredit the soul. It will do everything it can to keep you in your safety net, in your safety zone. So, how do you get around that? How do you pick up what the soul is doing, or what the soul wants, and what the ego is doing? First of all, is recognizing or being able to see what the soul's journey is and its destiny here. And that is something that, you've got to have that level of intuition to recognize and be able to step out of what your limitations are, right? And to see a bigger picture. So being able to step into the truth, there's a skill to that, right? There's a skill. It's something that's a learnt behavior, because we have been conditioned to stay small, and so the conditioning gets in the way. So first of all, you've got to recognize what the truth is by being able to access the truth beyond what your current reality is showing you. That's the very first thing, is recognizing what the soul has to offer. The second part of this is recognizing when you're in your dysfunction, right? When you're in your ego, when you're in your identity, when that part of you is playing tricks and trying to mimic being the soul, or mimic being a guide or whatever it might be. It's getting into those habits and recognizing. Now, one of the things about this is that part of us, when we go for something and we don't get it, we have a particular blueprint, an individual, unique way that we function when we're in our identity rather than in our soul. And each one of us has our own unique way of doing it. So being able to recognize what's your pattern, like when you're going for something and you distract yourself, or we just did a session on this in Conscious Creator Circle, right? So one of the things that we do is circle work. So we were going in and doing the circle work, and we were looking at what our end result is when we're 100% in that end result and we're in our greatness. What does that look like? And then on the other circle was what happens when you're in your identity and you're not going for what you want, right? You think you are, but you're not. And one of the things that I identified that still comes up and plays up every so often, right? One of the things I identified is I make an excuse, but then I waste time playing that excuse out in my head of why that happened, right? So I waste all this time in my head with the excuse so that I can then come up with a story of why this didn't happen, right? The story is not just for other people, but it's for me too. So my identity is pulling out all of this information of why I can't achieve X, Y, or Z, right? And it's, the poor, sorry victim Elizabeth, that whatever, I've seen it play out when I was living up in Far North Queensland. I lived in a little town called Yungaburra. And Yungaburra was 15 minutes away. It's a little village. It was 15 minutes away from the bigger town, which was called Atherton. Now, the way my brain worked, and it still goes back to that and defaults back to it if I don't catch it, is if it takes 15 minutes to get from Yungaburra to Atherton, then I'll leave 15 minutes before an appointment, right? So not taking into consideration getting in the car, driving out of the driveway, if there's any traffic on the road, because sometimes there was it was a one street, right? It was pretty simple, but there was sometimes, there'd be sugarcane trucks or a tractor, and cars backed up behind this tractor. Not taking into consideration that I had to find a car park and then get out of the car, right? So ultimately, before I even was a quarter of the way there, I would be late, and I'd know that I was going to be late. So I would spend the whole 15 minutes talking to myself about why I was late. There was a tractor on the road, or there was a car accident, or whatever, even when there wasn't, right? This is like, 15, 20 years ago, right? And so I'd have this whole story, this elaborate story in my head for why I was going to be late to whatever the appointment was that I was going to. It was exhausting. Who understands that or has had that experience in your own version, right? The identity that wants to hold on to why it has to be this way, or why I couldn't get to it, or why you know, the excuses, the distractions, the overwhelm, the whatever it is that yours is as your flavor of dysfunction, right? Your flavor of failure, whatever yours is, it's very interesting, right? Be aware of it. And for me, when I caught that, I used to have to recognize it, you know, like, and one of the things was I started going, I need to get into the car 10 minutes beforehand, right? And make myself do it. Make myself, even if that means I'm going to be on the other side and I'm going to be waiting, because it was my identity would say, oh, but then you're going to be early and then you're going to be sitting in the car wasting time, right? So even if that meant that was the case, I had to recondition myself to leave earlier than what my identity wanted me to do, right? Because ultimately, my soul is, I do the same, driving all the time. It's a habit, right, Shara? It's a habit. And so it's something you watch. I bet you do it in other areas as well, because I know I did, right? Now the soul wants to live, or it does live in integrity. The soul lives in integrity. The soul lives in truth, right? And the truth is the facts of the matter. So when you're living in your soul, when you're living in that flow pattern, when you're living in your truth and your greatness, what happens is you get to the end, you go in and you say, hey, I'm really sorry, I'm late for the appointment, but I just didn't leave home in time, because that's the fact, right? And so when you're in that space of just, this is what speaking your truth is all about. And this is what the soul is wanting you to line up with. And the soul is calling us to live in that truth. These little tiny moments. And these are the things that when we're in our identity, we want to flip into, no, well, wait a minute, what's my truth here? The soul knows that the integrity and the fact of the matter is that I wasted time before I left, or I didn't get ready in time, or whatever it might be. And can you see, this is where there's this discrepancy between the soul and the unconscious, because now there's a war between the two, and you're wasting energy that could be totally tuned in, tapped in, turned on, as the Esther Hicks law of attraction people say. When you're doing that behavior, we're wasting energy on what could be tuning in to what the soul is sharing and living at that highest frequency of our behavior, right? Living in that place where we are aligned and we're, you know, connected to all things through time and space. And that's when you have those moments of finding the YouTube, right? Finding the YouTube with the jaw thing, or you know, getting all the great car spots, or the triple numbers, or meeting the love of your life down the beach, or the 3 shooting stars, or Oleander Street to Oleander Drive. Those things that happen because I'm listening to my soul, because ultimately that is where I want to live. I want to live listening to my soul, because my soul knows more than I do. And so through that process, being able to listen to what the soul's got to say rather than the identity, when you have that end result of knowing what you came here to experience, now you've got a particular level, and now you can be orientating to that level, right? Not what the identity wants to share with us, which is often a lower level, right? Our identity wants to keep us small, wants to keep us in the uncomfortability of the comfort zone, right? It wants to keep us safe, even though safe doesn't feel comfortable or safe most of the time, right? It wants to hold us back. And so when we can live in the space of the soul, now we've got something to orientate to. Now we've got a focus point. So the soul, has an agenda of, this time around, I want to live in greatness. I want to experience my truth. I want to be an influencer to thousands of people. I want to meet the love of my life. I want to show that I am a powerful being and that I can move mountains and, and heal myself from situations that most wouldn't be able to heal from, to show the power of the soul. That's what my truth is. That's what I'm here for, right? Your soul has an agenda of what it came down to experience. When you know what that is, and as I was saying before, the ego is going to try and duplicate that and pretend that it is the soul talking to you. But when you really know that level of behavior from the soul, that's when you've got something to orientate to and focus on. And that's where creative spirit comes in. So if you're interested and want to find out what your soul's destiny is and what the truth is, I actually share, I'm doing a thing called Land of Plenty reading, like an intuitive reading, where both of us sit and we go through and look at what the soul's destiny is. And the benefit of doing it with somebody else that's got an intuitive frequency, if you want to put it that way, is that when I'm doing it with you, I've got no agenda, I've got no expectations, I've got no, no level of who you are and what you're supposed to be doing that the ego can be sharing with you. So having someone else read your destiny with you is really powerful, because ultimately the person that has no credit, in the process, often reads at a higher frequency than what your ego will allow you to experience. So that's something that I'm offering. It's an hour session. Basically, we go in, we do an intuitive read, look at what your soul's destiny is, what level of greatness you can achieve this time around, without the ego getting in the way. We go through a whole process to eliminate that. It's a shamanic journey. And then we can go through and look at what your choices are of how, to orientate towards that, so that you're living the truth that, you're here for. Especially this time around, we are in a position right now where our souls chose to be here at this time, at this space, where we're moving as a whole collective and the planet into fifth dimension, right? Now, not everyone's going to be able to do that, because there's so many different variances of consciousness on the planet. But if your soul is yearning for something, then this is one of the things that it's here for. So allow your soul to whisper. If you're interested in, it's a $200 session, and we do a deep dive into what your soul's destiny is. If that's something that you're interested in, just put soul in the comments and we'll send you the link. And I will catch you next Tuesday. See ya.